Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Daily AI Show. Vertical SaaS is under siege. How AI agents are disrupting the software world. The once stable world of vertical SaaS is about to get massively disrupted, and not by competitors, but AI agents. The rise of AI agents is fundamentally challenging the traditional SaaS model, which relies on user interfaces, structured over workflows, and seat-based pricing. AI agents can automate tasks without dashboards or rigid data hierarchies, making many established SaaS products less relevant. So the critical question today is, are today's vertical SaaS giants ready to defend their turf, or will they be swept away? This is the Daily AI Show. It's Tuesday, May 6th, 2025, and I am joined by Beth, Andy, Carl, and I'm Junmei. So let's get this big topic rolling with Carl. Carl, you brought us this topic. What are you foreseeing for the SaaS, and is it the death knell because AI agents are now on the market?
I don't know if it's a death knell, but like you can kind of see all the parts converging on one conclusion. That's how kind of I see it, right? So if you're a business strategist, and you're looking out at all the different elements that are putting this together. So you have vibe coding on one side, right? Making it way easier to can vibe coding completely code SaaS from front end, back end? No. Startups that did vertical agents. That's two. Then everything related to building a company, all the AI automations and tools that you can use where you don't necessarily need that many people. So all these three elements are converging to a point where, well, I don't need, instead of the normal SaaS growth method of traditionally VC funded growth, seed, series A, B, and C, then you have like Y Combinator asking specifically, pretty much saying, we want startups to go after vertical SaaS. Like there's probably a SaaS tool for every single use case, but there's an agent that can go after that. Then you have vibe coding. And then, like, I don't know if you were keeping track that Visa just laid the foundation for payments. So you have a lot of these things starting to come together. Well, to me, there's only one way it's going to move. Right? So that's kind of where I first thought, like, this was several months ago, because you can kind of see this piece by piece by piece by piece. And then the second part is, well, if enterprises, well, let's stay away from enterprise. Let's say medium-sized businesses. One of the hardest things for a SaaS company to think about is, how much customization will I allow or will I do for clients? And for some clients, the example was, if you have a client as a Microsoft or a Nike, you're going to customize your software to keep them as a client. But for smaller or medium-sized companies that, it's in your TAM, not so much. So there's like a trade-off there, right? But we were with a prospect, and they were talking to us and saying, we have an ERP system and we don't use 80% of it. We only use 20%. How many times in enterprises, so Andy, Junmei, Beth, that you've seen SaaS tools that only a small percentage of the full capabilities of the SaaS tool is being used regularly by the company? There's a lot of cool features, but specifically for that company, it can only do this one thing. And there's a lot of chatter. Hey, how come this tool can't do this? Like, no matter what tool you buy in any company, people are always annoyed by the tool. I've never actually been to a SaaS company is like, there's two things. We love our SaaS products and we love our website. There's always, when I've ever entered a company, it's like, we hate our websites. I hate this tool. And it's always the same thing. right? No matter if you switch it to Salesforce, to HubSpot, SAP, Oracle, whatever SaaS tool you have, there's always people that get annoyed at it by it because it can't do the thing they want it to do. It can do general things, but it can't do that specific thing. So I guess there's two paths for conversation here. The first path is, where the things are converging, and the second path is, why can't I just build this thing? So can you build it now? No, but with OpenAI just buying Windsurf and probably deploying that, 3-6 a year, why can't we? And people are just literally ripping off Asana, Trello, and just copy pasting it, building websites through vibe coding. It's not going to be long.
Yeah, I agree. It really is. We've gotten to this point where I totally agree with like, if you have 5 things, and any product, any SaaS product is always 3 of the 5. And it's not necessary. It's always the most important piece, and then 2 of maybe the least important pieces, but not number 2 and 3. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that. Beth, Andy, you going to say something?
Yeah, I want to make a distinction between horizontal SaaS, like Salesforce, that covers a large swath of corporate business processes, and vertical SaaS, which is focused on either a vertical industry and unique requirements in that industry, or on a vertical function. Let's say, like when you say ERP, there are financial ERPs, right, that tie together all of the financial processes. And then there are ERPs that go way beyond that. And, enterprise requirements planning can extend to a much broader thing. So you might have, in an ERP system, when you use that term, you might have a vertical ERP and a horizontal ERP. And yes, I agree that if you're looking at horizontal solutions out there, it's difficult to achieve the bespoke customization that you want for your company from one of those tools. And you end up paying, if they have, fragmented subscription models, then it's okay. You can choose to use these 3 modules, and each one of those modules that you add on to your SaaS subscription costs you more and more. But if you're only using 3 of 5, then that's okay. So I wanted to just paint a picture of the biggest players in vertical SaaS. And I think my argument today is going to be that there are significant moats that are created by the large players in vertical applications that will be very difficult to be displaced by agents or vibe coding. So for example, the biggest one out there is a company called Veeva Systems, and that's 2.2 billion in revenue every year. Another large one, by the way, that's in pharma. That's in the pharma industry. So if you're a pharma company, this provides cloud solutions, and it does so by integrating your pharma distribution with all of the pharmacies. So I mean, you're talking about a very complex system that's got both sides of a major marketplace associated with it. And so there's entrenchment that happens when that's in place. Because if you want to, say, build your own thing to manage you as an individual pharma company, you might actually be large enough to afford the AI implementation of that. But it also means that you've got to painstakingly connect to assist, like millions of endpoints in effect that are already there in Veeva Systems. So the work's already been done by the major entrenched players. Let me take another example. Toast is a system that spans the gamut for restaurants, from allowing users to order online to managing the ticket system inside the kitchen, so that when an order comes in, it gets burst into the right workstations, and then that process is managed. Plus, it integrates payments. So Toast is a 1.1 billion annual system. If you're a restaurant, you're you're not likely to be able to build a system that ties into DoorDash and to Uber Eats and all those other things as easily as you might imagine. So even if you've got great vibe coding skills and so on, you're not going to, as an individual restaurant, be able to economically afford to build your own solution there when Toast is sitting there. And yeah, you're kind of locked in to using the Toast ecosystem, but it's very complete and it addresses all the edge cases that you want to. But I actually have some experience with trying to integrate a Toast thing in what's called a ghost kitchen, where you have multiple customer-facing restaurants, and Toast just wasn't prepared to handle that in many ways. And so it was frustrating because it wasn't easily customizable. It's basically designed for a single brand restaurant and its presence online and so on. There's a big one called Service Titan in the home and field services area. Now, let me just jump ahead to some of the things that make these advantageous if you stick with the market leader, the major player in the vertical SaaS. And then I'm going to talk about, why those players are probably much more likely to be able to implement AI on behalf of you as a customer than you are able to implement AI yourself. So this is the sort of comprehensive skeptic argument on, that vertical SaaS companies are actually under siege. So here's the things that make a vertical at these kinds of scales already entrenched. And the first one is network effects. So think of network effects ranging from, okay, I can access everything out there because everybody's kind of adopted this one platform. And the more people who are on the platform, the more resilient it is to any kind of disruption because, hey, everybody's already gathered around this one solution. And there's another network effect that we've talked about on the show, which is Shopify's pay system. So as a Shopify customer, if you're using Shopify as your e-commerce platform, then if a customer comes along on your online store or elsewhere and decides to buy from you, and all they have to have done is already shopped at another Shopify store, then Shopify identifies that user, says, oh, this is a Shopify customer, not just a customer of this particular e-commerce store. And so we're just going to send them a code to their phone. They just have to put that code into the phone or on the desktop, and that'll automatically bring in all their payment information and conclude the transaction without them having to go through the burdensome process of having to fill out their own account on your own e-commerce shopping cart. So the network effect is the more and more users out there who are accustomed to using Shopify as a fast checkout system, the more likely you are to benefit from that by satisfying customers more directly and accelerating the completion of the cart, which has very great funnel advantages. Like if you put anything in the way of concluding the cart purchase, that's a problem. So the network effects are really working to Shopify's advantages there. And that predisposes me as an e-commerce person to say, I think I'm going to use Shopify because even though I can build my own shopping cart now, I can integrate it with Stripe. I can do all the things. I can duplicate all the features and functions that Shopify shopping cart does. I don't have the connections. And now the next one is proprietary data ecosystems. So any one of these major SaaS companies has accumulated enormous volumes of data. Now, we know in the world of AI that data is really the precursor to good AI implementation. So these major SaaS players, the few examples that I provided, they have decades of data in some cases. And that data is essential to understanding what all of the requirements are, to implement AI advantaged work processes. The next one is regulatory complexity. In the case of pharma companies, there's a lot of regulations that have to be observed. a single SaaS provider that's vertical to that industry already comprehends all of those regulatory and compliance requirements, and they've got them built in. If you're going to build your own solution in that space, you're going to spend years in engineering and legal trying to figure out how to meet the requirements of the regulations and the laws that apply to that particular company. So that just creates a big moat that I think is going to make it very difficult for certain verticals. Now, there are smaller companies. There's a major vertical out there in the wellness space, and there's a big player that does $300 million estimated annually. It's called MindBody, and that's for spa, salon, and fitness studio management. That company, I think, I'm not sure there's network effects there. Like if I'm going to this spa and that spa owner wants to build their own scheduling and payment solution, I think they can get away with that. Why? Because there isn't, with a few exceptions where you're talking about large chains like, I forget the names of them, but there are certain ones where it's a franchise organization, but you can actually, as a member of one, you can go to others in another city while you're traveling. There's some network effects that are beneficial there, but I think they're minor compared to the network effects that apply to some of these other verticals. So I would say there is this exception in my mind, which is the spa, salon, fitness realm, where a company could avoid the steep costs, both in the cost of the subscription to that sort of spa management system, plus the transaction fees that are higher than the lowest cost transaction fees that you can get by doing the deal directly with some other payment provider. I think you could build your own solution for a small company like that.
But isn't the whole point of developing the AI is so that you don't have to worry about all of those moats that you pointed out for these other integrations, these SaaS integrations, whether it's compliance or anything like that.
Help me understand how developing AI gets past.
Because you talked about the data, right? So if the AI can accomplish all of that coding, all of that compliance, has all of that data and all that information, then the AI is doing the heavy lifting. You don't have to do the research. It knows already, right? And you can build that as the product. Isn't that what the product is supposed to be developing? And I'm talking about not right now AI. I'm talking about, in a year or in or 2 years or whatnot. Because if you have all of that, if you have all that information, if you have all that data, you have all the agentic capability of performing all the tasks that you would have needed to do, but someone can put that AI solution into a package and say, what do you want to develop? Okay, this is my business. All right, here, press the button. And it does it. Now, this is the ideal situation, of course, but that's the dream, that's the hope. So you don't have to you don't have to be locked in, right? Because you said, oh yeah, you're in like Toast, you're locked into that ecosystem. Doesn't this provide you the larger roadmap or the longer runway to just develop your own thing how you want it, and it'll be your own thing, your own proprietary data, and you won't need all of these others? Admittedly, you'll be locked into whoever builds the AI, of course, but it just moves it from having this highly complex system to a more automated and easier to turn over or stand up kind of situation.
So I get your point. And I kind of imagine that there's a deep research AI that could go out and try to figure out all of the complexities of working in the pharma industry, for example. It could come back with that. But I think one of the moats that I mentioned is proprietary data. That proprietary data that sits in that big system out there, Viva, is not accessible to AIs. It can't crawl that data.
But couldn't OpenAI just make a deal with them and buy it?
No, they're not going to do that.
I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
I think,
Well,
like, so-
I see your dream. I see your
Right,
dream,
of course,
but
of course.
I'm
I'm
very
talking about
skeptical.
ideal situations. I'm not talking about the right now situation. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're not going to sell you their proprietary, decades long data about, a pharma interactions and treatments that, that are the foundation of some of their
I mean, if they just
proprietary.
get bought out, right? If you
Okay,
have
so-
enough money.
The chat would like to hear from Carl.
Oh, from Lord Carl. Yes. All right, Lord Carl, go for it.
No, I think like, so part of our roadmap from 0 to 60 is to set the foundations for the companies that we work with, essentially to do just that. That's why for us, we avoid enterprise. We want to avoid them because there's too many pieces in there. But for medium and smaller size businesses, that's kind of the point, is to, hey, you get all the efficiencies, productivities, fine, cool. But really, it's like, okay, you're good there, cool. Let's introduce the stuff that can make you compete. Now compete with, like, who are the big enterprises in your space? Let's go after them. And how do we do that? And you start building the blocks for them to do it. Because I've always said the ones who are going to knock out those enterprises are the ones who are going to come up and their entire ecosystem, operations, everything is AI built ground up, not layers of whatever. And I think the wild card in everything of all this, and I go back to the Visa announcement, is what will agents allow? How will an agent level economy where companies and yourself are allowing your agents to go out and do things for you? What will the impact will be on what Andy's talking about, though, is we understand if AI's intervention stopped today, it would still take businesses 5, 7, 10 years to adopt. So we're talking enterprises who we know just from like, it isn't the process will prevent you, but there's people in those processes that will prevent you too. We've run into so many CTOs. We've run into so many people that risk averse, fear, all this stuff. And I was just like, sometimes I'm like, it's not even worth it to even go down that route. I wish you good luck. I look forward to your disruption in 2 to 3 years. Rather work with the companies to go after and disrupt, because it's just like, okay, that's fine, but you can like, again, back to my first point, all the things are lining up. 1, 2, 3, 4 agents are coming. This, you're going to do this can do this. So it's either you get on board or you're like, okay, you have this enterprise that won't use AI or kind of uses bolts on AI, but then you have agents now. How are you going to adopt to that? Even the use case, when I showed a couple of people, okay, what's Manus, what's GenSpark, what's Operator? And those are very research betas. What do those things have impacts on your security? Your entire security has to change. Just because if someone gives a password, it doesn't, like, an agent can go into any system and do whatever it wants now, right? Like, if you've tried the what was the one? It's like Real Agent or whatever the tool I was using. It just controls my entire computer for me. So, like, if you allow people who are gonna get using that to do whatever they want, it doesn't matter if you have security or, like, how are you gonna adapt to that? So that's sort of like, it's gonna take businesses a while, but my thing is, that's fine. Does it really matter? Because all these other businesses are coming up and designed to go after these businesses. Like, that's how I'm seeing it. I would say 2, 3 years. I wouldn't say this year, but, like, it's just it's so fast. And you have Y Combinator literally saying, yeah, let's go get them. And I was like, okay, we'll see that.
Yeah.
So,
is there
wait,
an
wait, wait.
example from Y Combinator of what they're talking about when they say, take a crack at a vertical SaaS? Like, is there do we have an example of what Y Combinator is promoting?
Well, yeah, if you go to their like I don't know if I've showed this before.
It's in the show notes.
Yeah, it's a request for startups vertical agents.
I know, but I'm talking about a specific vertical SaaS that they're challenging, like they're
I
suggesting.
think that's what the call out is. Here's go after every single one. Like,
Okay, yeah,
it's
it was very general. As I read it, but and I guess that's important too, because they don't want to restrain the ideation of the entrepreneurs who are going after vertical SaaS. But I don't think anybody's going after Service Titan or Viva, right? Y Combinator isn't saying go after those players. They're going after, I think, much smaller vertical SaaS players that but I struggle to find an example of what
when
would
they,
work.
when they say
You said
are
it
the next-
yourself, right? Y Combinator isn't limiting it. Y Combinator is saying we see this as an opportunity across the board. If you have an idea, we want to hear it. And what this is pointing to is the tension that people feel. To go back to one of the things that Carl said in the very beginning, people don't love their SaaS. They use their SaaS because it's necessary for their business. If someone can come up with a solution that would just like ease the pain slightly, there is more of a possibility there. Now, on the other side, I think that there's a big trust factor. You talked about it a little bit with the CTOs who are like, no, I'm not sure about that. Like the trust factor is going to be huge because this is both proprietary data and like vertical data that you can't, that is not easy to get. Yes, you could scrape 1 million sites and perhaps pull that together, but I'm not sure that in itself is something that people would feel a lot of trust about. The other thing that hasn't been mentioned is that using the SaaSes, SaaSi, is a training thing, right? And Salesforce is horizontal, but it's the one that I'm most familiar with. There's a huge amount of training and certifications involved in being able to show companies that you can function well within a Salesforce environment. If you go to your proprietary thing, are you locked in? Now, I know the answer to that is no, the agent does the whole thing, but somebody's got to know what the agent does, right? There needs to be some sort of education about what we expect to happen, the ways that we're integrating or interfacing with these kinds of things. But I do think that going back to what I said in the beginning, the tension is where the opportunity is, and what that opportunity creates, what people create to address that opportunity will be really interesting, because I think that's where your opportunity is in the next 2 to 3 years. Full replacement, maybe 7-10 years down the line. But if you can ease people's tension, which might be an agent that interfaces, right? Like I don't need to remember what all the screens are or do any of that. I can just have a conversation or a natural language. This is what I want, and I have an agent that interfaces with the difficult to use proprietary SaaS. I think those are the opportunities that are coming right now. So there.
Yeah.
I do see though when we talk about like again for any business, it's still slow adoption. We're the thing is, I think we get excited because it's like, okay, it's here. These new companies are coming, but for current businesses, it's super, super slow. Just because like their whole process, all the operations, even just using AI on a regular basis kind of it's not natural to how a business has been set up, right? IT isn't set up like that. It's not like an ERP. It's not like a CRM. It's not your traditional thing. I keep coming back to Brad Lightcap a year ago, where he was saying it's like most companies can't wrap their head around an AI function because AI changes. They want it to remain static because it's predictable and the costs, and you can deploy it and everybody knows what it does. But if an AI keeps changing, it's very, very difficult for people to, oh, it now can do this and this and this and this. Like, there's a difference between like a Salesforce adding features versus something that completely can just convert to doing something else. So,
And
yeah.
that's a really good point, because you're clarifying something for me. One of the things that I saw as the opportunity in this is that anyone can code a SaaS, right? The ability to create the duplicate, but from the ground up grown, so it's not something that's like held together with Scotch tape, because the core company bought a bunch of things and just like merge them on in some ways. I'm looking at you, Salesforce. I was seeing this as being grown from the ground up with the assistance of AI, but it's still largely software. If you are talking about building something that has AI as its core for how functions get done, that's an entirely different thing, and I am not sure we're ready for that. I also want to highlight McBab, one of our watchers. Thanks, welcome to the show. They say each AI agent step will have to be improved by an employee. They think that they'll have a job for at least the next 5 years clicking a button. Yeah, I mean, that's someone who actually works in the situation that we're talking about here.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying something stupid about like they still need our stupid monkey fingers to click the button.
Right. Hey, yeah, we've hypothesized that we'll be in a situation where the AI is doing the job, and then they just need us to press some buttons for them every so often. So, I mean, it sounds like a pretty chill job. But what I wanted to take from this conversation, and what I've been seeing in chat, is this is the hopes and dreams that I have from AI. That is to be disruptive. That the way that we think of things and the way that we do things, the way that there's huge established systems and things like that. I want that to all be disrupted. A little chaos every so often, or a lot of chaos every so often, is good for change. But I think the main thing is what we're coming to a clearer realization is that AI is so disruptive, it changes so often, that we have to be just as adaptable. So we have to learn to change, turn on a dime, make that shift to be more in line with how quickly things are going to go. Because if we are still as, monolithic and molasses like as we are as a society, we're going to be bigger and bigger differences. So be like water and flow. Be like change, and keep up with those technological changes as much as possible. So I am hoping for some, like what Combinator is saying, is that, hey, let's have this one person with, or this small group they can start off small. Y Combinator and other VC type organizations, incubators, can help them along, eat a piece of the space, grow into larger and larger pieces. We'll probably see some conglomeration of them, or they'll work interactively. That would address some of the things that Andy, you were saying, that proprietary information. If they have their own proprietary information, they'll just use that, that kind of thing, where they grow to a point where they're just eating into all of these industries and all of these monoliths until a point where they can come out to be the go-to. They can be the number one, or collectively they can be the number one. Is that going to be difficult? Absolutely. All right, Andy, you look like you already have a pushback. Give it to me.
I have a pushback. That's right.
All right.
Well, there's in network effects, there's a principle called Metcafs Law, and that's where a platform's value to all the participants grows exponentially with each additional participant. And I'll give you an example of that. So there's a vertical SaaS called Procore, Procore has a network of 55,000 contractors, and each of those contractors is managing their projects through the Procore platform. And in doing so, they contribute project data, enabling for all the players the benchmarking across the industry of the construction life cycle. So you can, if you join the Procore network and you're using that, you can have it track, and they're going to add AI to it as well, for sure. Most of these major vertical SaaS players will. Why? They have the resources to do it, and they have a very large catchment of users who can benefit from additional AI intelligence applied to that. So if you're going to build your own contractor management system and try to actually enter into the market, there are two problems. One is your customized alternative is going to lack access to that industry-wide activity feed. And that's going to limit the value of the data that you can present to yourself or to anybody else that you want to get onto your SaaS platform. And then the second one is, if you really want to build your own competitor to a vertical SaaS out there and do it economically, one of the things you're going to struggle with is customer acquisition cost, because companies are risk adverse. They do not averse. I'm sorry, not adverse. Companies are risk averse, and they do not want to buy into a solution that isn't proven and endorsed and validated by a very large number of comparables in their market. So if you go to G2 or any of the platforms that evaluate, vertical SaaS companies for the purposes of a purchase by enterprise, they have a ranked order of who's out there and how many customers those companies have, and lots of reviews and so on. So trying to break into the market, one thing is to replicate all the functionality that a company that's been out there working in that specific industry for a long time already knows, and you can copy that, but it's going to be very difficult. Your customer acquisition cost is going to be very high because of the lack of validation of your solution.
Okay,
okay, go ahead.
I was just going to ask the big question then, Andy. What would they have to do? What are the things that would have to happen to make that disruption to those established organizations?
Well, in the imaginary world of the comprehensive agent for that company, not only being able to go out there and try to find all the information necessary to support whatever business function you're talking about, in this case, construction project management, let's say you have an independent agent, but you are letting that agent do most of the functions that you want. If some other company has done something that's better, you might never know about it, because those sort of the rising stars in the matrix of the companies that are delivering solutions in that particular space, they don't have enough visibility for your agent even to pay attention to them. Now, okay, you might counter by saying, oh, my agent is going to be exhaustive in its search of everybody who's ever published anything about what they're doing. And they're going to, on their website, that new SaaS product that was built with AI and AI first and so on, the agent's going to look at that and say, okay, well, I want to have that feature as well. They have a new feature that sounds pretty interesting. I'm going to build that feature myself. It's probably cheaper for that agent to subscribe to that entry-level SaaS while their umbrella pricing doesn't exist, right? They have no juge out there, so they have to keep their prices low. So let's buy that and see what that does. But then you're imposing on the agent an integration complication in its network of creating this Frankenstein collection of all these other little things. So it's either go it alone and be balkanized in a way that you don't get access to the market spaces and or the data that's industry-wide that has a significant value if you want to benchmark your performance against the competition, in effect, or buy into one of the platforms that has network effects, benefits from Metcafs Law, and gives you a lot of value.
Okay. All right. And what would they need to do to break out of Metcalfe's law?
Metcalfe's Law is a law that applies to large aggregations of common users. There would have to be cooperation. There'd have to be an association or co-op of all the agents that are independent agents building their own solutions, and they would share information. The architecture for that may be $1 million idea, right? Mm-hmm. If we get to the point where agents are actually managing most of the business processes on the digital side, then there might be a value in some kind of data sharing cooperation among agents like that. And what do you pay for that? I don't know.
Okay, I see your Metcalf Law, and I am going to raise you the Lemming Law, which is to put humans in, like there are humans in this loop as well. And decisions get made not necessarily because they are the best decisions, right? They get made because now it seems like there's social proof. Everyone around you is moving in that direction. And that is a piece that is very hard to pinpoint, because it's not like, oh, well, we checked these boxes, right? I mean, we can look at that with the companies that bought 365 Copilot and then hated it, right? They didn't buy that because that was the best solution. They bought that because they were feeling a pressure to do something. And I think we might see some of that. And I'm not sure that's a good thing, right? The other thing, I've been having a conversation in the chat. This may be a forcing function for reducing staff as well, because the number of people who need to be on board in order to move something forward would, like, if you reduce it, you need fewer people to be there with you in that moment. And I think that's not what we were trying to find. But if the humans in the loop are based on not changing, right? Not moving in the disruption, being those people who would need to say yes, as Mick Babb was saying, right? Like there is a human needing to say yes or to be on board at every step. Does that then make a forcing function for reducing staff? Because if your agent can do the work of 10 people and 9 of your 10 are like, absolutely not, don't you reduce those down to this? I really feel like we are in a place we're in an age of discontinuity, right? We are in an age of disruption. And so we are typically looking at the past to predict what's going to happen in the future. And I don't know that we're there.
I love Lemmings Law. And what you've just painted for me is an image of a vast population of humans walking toward a cliff. And you may be right. It could be that, the doomsayers about AI's impact overall on the economies is that humans are going to be seconded, deprecated, because they have a tendency to, try to follow the crowd, and following the crowd may not be the optimization that the AI knows is ideal for what objectives, and that
Right.
gets us back to the ethical questions of, if your ethical objectives are centered around profit making, then and to the benefit of the owners of capital and means of production, then that's not going to have anything other than a lemming-like end for the humans who are in larger numbers involved in productive work output today.
And I think I love the I don't love. I don't want to be part of the humans. I want to say, hey, don't go that way, because let's see. But I don't think that everybody can see the cliff. I think they're walking in a narrower and narrower space to a door that admits one person. And that's what you see. You see somebody open the door, they close the door, the cliff is on the other side, boom. Because I don't think that everybody's having the same vantage point of like what people are walking towards. I just don't. I think the AI hype, that if you're not implementing AI in your business, you're already way behind, right? That I think that then blinds people to what's real and what's not.
Well, so I've always asked, is that statement true? Like, I know that's a hype statement, but like, if we're thinking about it in general terms, would we consider that statement true? If you are not implementing AI today, so let's say your company is absolutely not doing anything in AI, allowing just pockets of people to do whatever with AI, but not have like a unified approach, is your company falling behind? And I think like any other answers, like it depends on which industry you are, right? Because it's some industries you're like, not really. Ideally, you should start doing something, but like this industry is very, very slow to adapt. Like Andy said, there's a lot of regulations, a lot of different reasons why that's going to take time. But in some industries, it's like, yeah, you better get going because it's very, very competitive and everyone's using it and so on. So I guess it depends which room you say that sentence to. And the same thing, that sentence that everyone says, right? Like oh, you're not going to be replaced by AI. Someone who's using AI is going to replace you, or some weird like variation of that sentence. It makes me cringe when I hear that. But again, it's like in certain situations, it could be true too.
And this is why you should be listening to our show. You should be like working with consultants and those kinds of things, because it's like saying, if you don't exercise, you are shortening your life. That is a general statement, but that doesn't mean if you're not rock climbing every day, right? Because like exercise is not it is not a personalized, like bespoke word. It's a like general, yeah, you should move, or whatever that is, right? If you are not using AI, you're behind. But there are a ton of uses for AI that would not actually be great opportunities right now, right? But like all those people who spent a long time learning how to be prompt engineers in a very structured, it has to be these specific things, and everybody in your company knew that. I'm not sure that now is like, I would not recommend a company put everybody through that kind of specific prompt engineering training. And I don't think that that's necessarily put you ahead, other than you had your employees talking about AI. Like that, I think, is a great idea. Let's talk about those opportunities. But there are specifics in this, again, that I think are still part of a sea change that we're not great at predicting where it's going.
Yeah, and I think that again, like I was saying, the big wild card here is what is the adoption of, if all the labs, all these companies are talking about agents, and there's different definitions of agents. Same thing again. I go back to the Visa announcement. So what is that? That's the wild card, because there's assumptions that it's going to do this, but I'm like, I honestly don't know how that's even going to play into the ecosystem.
Carl, can you recap what the Visa announcement is for everybody?
Oh, sorry. So the Visa announcement is literally the CEO of Visa announced that they will they announce capabilities that enable your agent to make payments on your behalf. So they can go out, that the promise of agents can go out and book your travel, but then it's kind of stopped short of, it can book your travel and actually pay for your travel. And so what Visa is like, here's capabilities that enable your agents to make payments that are trustworthy, to that you'll actually, that the financial institutions, you'll pay your agent you have the dollars and financial, I guess, resources to do that. The trust and the trust factor is big, right? Because it's like, can you trust your agent to actually make that purchase? But also there's what's the other element there? It has to do with trust, where your agent can, it's just at the tip of my tongue, is a big piece too. I can't remember it. I'll drop by and say it. So it was like, and then AI agent enabled cards. So they have the protection that, you can use these cards in a whole bunch of capabilities. But the big one for me was that capability for your agent to go out and make payments, and then also set limits, and you have full control of it. But, right, that your AI agent has the authority to make these payments on your behalf. So to me, that's always been the sticking points. Like, well, how do you get that? But if MasterCard and Visa allow you to do that, or have these systems that enable your agent to do that, and like the CEO said, in months, because I think the news anchor said, "Oh, when do you think we'll see this?" And it's like, "Oh, we're in months. We've partnered with Perplexity, OpenAI, Microsoft, Anthropic, and just listed." And it's like, so, and then again, convergence. You have OpenAI showcasing products in ChatGPT, and if you have a Visa card that can go pay it, so you have an agent be like, "Hey, just go buy me a $50 blender, something, go." It can do that on your behalf, authorized to do it, right? Maybe you have like, before you buy, I just want to, show me, or before you buy, give me a recommendation, or just go buy it. I don't care. I just need it. Like, there's different levels to that. But if you have that capability and all the financial institutions trust MasterCard, Visa, that kind of that solves one challenge or barrier.
Gwen asked if you can you still dispute the charges?
Going rogue, but like, I bought 100 blenders. I'm like, no, I wanted you to buy one blender, but then you're like, oh crap, I pressed 2 zeros after that. That was my typo. But like, right? So it's like, that'll happen, and like something stupid like that. But then my question is, okay, let's stop with the personal products. But I'm like, what happens if a company allows its agent to go buy something? What's the implication of that? Like, how does that start working? Because that has implication on what we're talking about too, like vertical SaaS, allowing companies to have agents to go make a purchase for them. I don't even know what that would mean. Like, I haven't even thought that through.
That sounds like a show topic. AI agents in the purchase world. What does it mean for you? Those kinds of things. So as we're wrapping up for the day, any last thoughts on vertical SaaS and AI agents taking over? Nope. Okay, cool. So we'll wrap it up here. Thank you, everybody in chat, for joining us. It's always great to see you all, especially when it's super lively like it is today. Thank you, everybody who wasn't able to join us in chat, but will be watching this later. Remember that we've got shows Monday through Friday, and tomorrow is News Day with Wednesday. Thursday, we have AI is entering the era of experience. And then on Friday, we've got COT Evolved, 3 new chains of reasoning in the AI era. Okay, so
chain of thought,
chain of RAG, all of those kinds of things. All right. Thank you, everybody, again. And make sure to continue the conversation in our new community Slack channel by going to the Daily AI Show community.com and being directed there. Or you can always sign up for, sign up for the newsletter at thedailyAIshow.com and find out the latest information of what's going on with DAS. So great show, you all. great show today, you all. We got into some deep conversations, and I always like the back and forth. If it doesn't have at least 2 pushbacks, it's not going there. So so that'll be it for today, and we will see you all tomorrow for the news. Aloha.